Coming up, keeping your pets safe from rabies. What you need to know about the importance of getting your pets vaccinated against this deadly disease. We'll be right back. Well, a lot has been made about the importance of vaccinating our children, but what about our pets? Dr. David Gonsky from West Loop Veterinary Care joining us again once a day to talk this time about pets and vaccinations. Welcome back. Always
Thanks.
good to have you. Okay, so you're here specifically to talk about rabies and the rabies vaccine. Why rabies in particular?
Well, September 28th was National Worldwide Rabies Day, and rabies is actually one of the deadliest diseases in the world. Over 59,000 people get infected each year from a bite or a scratch from a mammal, and once the symptoms show, it's almost always fatal.
Wow.
So it's a really serious disease.
And you know, when we get our dogs vaccinated, rabies is one of the vaccines, but I don't really think it's something I usually worry about because I just assume everybody will get their pets vaccinated, but that's not the case,
Not at all.
So give me an example of maybe why people wouldn't do that.
Okay, well, what we typically will see is like cat owners. Their cats are indoor only, and so they don't worry as much. The problem is there are reservoir animals like bats that can sneak into the house and infect your cat or dog, but also if you bring, it's multifactorial, but if you bring your unvaccinated pet somewhere or someone comes in your house and they get bitten, there's a quarantine period, 10 days at your expense, which I always tell my clients, at the end of that 10 days, they get the vaccine. So it's typically people who feel like their pet is not at risk. But with wild animals out there that can be infected, bats, skunks, foxes, they're still a risk.
Okay, so say you get bit by a dog, the dog does not have the rabies vaccine, then they mandatory quarantine if they don't have the vaccine.
Correct.
Correct?
10 days.
10 days. And then the cat's issue is very interesting because you think I have an indoor cat, the cat never goes outside, but you're saying it's really something that if you have a dog or a cat, you really need to have done.
Right, so dogs are going to be more exposed to things on their walks than cats are because cats aren't going outside. But the problem comes in, and I hear it all the time, like, oh, my cat or my dog would never bite anybody.
Right.
But when they go to the vet or the emergency room and they're not feeling well, that's when they tend to bite.
Okay, so we hear a lot, too, about concerns for vaccines for children, but do people worry that vaccines can injure their dogs? Is that a concern as well?
Absolutely. People worry about that, and it's always a risk-reward discussion with the clients, but things like rabies, as long as your pet is healthy enough to receive it, should happen. Again, 59,000 people worldwide. It's the laws in our country that have brought it down to where we don't worry about it. In Cook County, in Illinois, since January 1st, it's required of all dogs and cats. Things like that have kept it from being a bigger problem in the United States, but it is a serious problem.
Interesting. I didn't know it was just January. So that's very
1st.
recent.
For cats.
For cats. Okay. Okay. So what do you do? First of all, how can you tell if a dog or a cat could be rabid? The first thing we think about is, you know, the frothing of the mouth.
Right.
But is that always the telltale sign? It's
a big sign, and they can become neurologic. I think it's important to remember that a bite from something as small as a bat, you might not even see it. So you might not even know your pet was exposed. The other reason for vaccination. If they become exposed, they become neurologic, wobbly, not acting right, and then, yes, tight jaw, frothy, saliva. Those are the classic signs of rabies.
And that's interesting.
But that's late.
Right, and that's too late. And that's interesting, too, because we have a lot of bats here in Illinois. So when people hear you say, oh, you know, they could get bit by a bat, they might think that's ridiculous, but there's bats everywhere.
Well, just a few weeks ago in Beverly, there was a rabies-infected bat that was found, 4 in Will County this summer. So they're out there, and the skunks and the raccoons.
Okay.
Yes.
And if your dog or cat is vaccinated and gets bit by a rabid bat, what's the likelihood the dog will also become ill?
It won't.
Zero.
Zero.
Okay. That's all we need to hear then, right?
Right.
Okay. So if people want to learn more about you and what you guys do over at West Loop, what website should they go to?
westloopvet.com.
Thank you so much. Always great to see you. Great advice, too.